So we're here today with Clement Solomon. He's the Intermodal Division Director for the Georgia DOT. Brendan Wheeler, Program Manager for Transportation Planning for the North Central Texas Council of Governments, and Arthur Sohikian, who's the Executive Director for the High Desert Corridor Joint Powers Authority. So we're going to be hearing some short 3-minute presentations from each of these guys on the projects they're working on, and then we'll have a discussion and maybe a couple questions. So Clement, you want to kick it off? Do you have the clicker?
Thank you very much, Ezra. This is a hard lineup to go after right after the mayor. I'm going to keep it brief, but just wanted to share with you kind of the pipeline idea that Andy and Ezra talked with me when we were putting together this presentation. All of us have a part to play, and the piece that I will be talking to you about this morning are 3 planning activities that has occurred, 2 have occurred, and 1 in the works. Real quick on how we see high-speed rail and the intersection of that flowing into Atlanta and out of Atlanta. So the first one that I wanted to talk with you is the Atlanta Chattanooga study that we did. This was done a while ago, but we looked at 3 alternatives. There were about 15 that we started it with and siphoned it back to about 3. And the one that we looked at that seemed promising was the I-74 corridor. A lot of it was primarily looking at Norfolk Southern right of way and following the right of way along the I-75 corridor. So that study was completed in 2017, and a similar study that we looked at too was from Atlanta to Charlotte. And again, there were 3 alternatives that we looked at. The preferred one was the Greenfield corridor, primarily because this was a new site that had to be developed, and we were able to get higher speeds as well as looking at diesel and electric as options as well. Finally, the last part is the Atlanta Savannah. This is a new project. This was a congressionally directed spending project that we have embarked on. The project is underway. All we have going on right now is the vendor has been selected. WSP is the one that is going to be working with us. We see this as a very interesting project, especially with the intersection of FRA's new corridor ID program. So we're working with FRA to look at this environmental impact study. This is about 270 miles of the distance between Atlanta and Savannah, about 1,100 square miles. We plan to look at a service delivery plan, identify technology. So this study will be a lot more relevant and recent in terms of where we're moving forward with the FRA's new piece that they're looking at. So in a nutshell, I just wanted to share with you folks the planning activities that have occurred and are continuing to occur in Georgia. We see the California vision, and we hope to be part of that connection someday, but it does start with the planning activity, and that's sort of where we are at this point.
Thank you, Clement. If we could have high-speed rail in the Southeast, I think that could transform this country. That would just be unbelievable. So thank you for sharing that. Brendan, you want to go ahead?
Absolutely. So my name is Brendan with the North Central Texas Council of Governments, which is the Metropolitan Planning Organization for DFW. I also have a set of slides that should be coming up here shortly. But just to give you a little bit of context before those slides come up, our DFW region is about 8 million people as of 23. And within 25 years, we expect to increase by just under 50% population. So it's a massive increase for any area, but as a 4th largest metro, becoming the 3rd largest metro within about 10 or so years. Definitely a lot of items to consider, and high-speed rail needs to be a part of the solution connecting the mega region that is the Texas Triangle. So just a quick study background. Many of y'all know Texas Central's efforts for high-speed rail planning in the state of Texas. Theirs is the Dallas to Houston corridor, obviously one of the prime corridors that's been recognized internationally as a significant connection for high-speed rail to fill. We have a lot of other high-speed rail planning history in the state. The Texas-Oklahoma passenger rail study that our State Department initiated several years ago, more along the 35 corridor between Fort Worth, San Antonio, Austin, onto Laredo toward the border. COG, our organization, also built on top of that with the Fort Worth to Laredo high-speed study, introducing other high-speed options, making sure alternatives were looked at along that particular corridor. Our organization also did station area planning studies within the DFW region And I'll get to that as far as the 3-station concept that our policy board has come up with for our region. But this just gives you a picture that we have, again, a lot of high-speed rail planning background in the state, no projects yet, and that's, I think, the same around the country. The other thing I wanted to highlight for our region is we have, as mentioned, a lot of private sector interest, a lot of interest from other nations in building high-speed rail in Texas. But the state has a lot of success with public-private partnerships. And particularly our region, we leverage a lot of private dollars in building out our transportation within the DFW region. We've leveraged tens of billions of dollars of private investment against federal and state dollars to make projects go further and actually build projects that would not be built today had it not been for that investment. So from our outlook, how can we build a model for public-private partnerships for a national high-speed rail network? That's kind of how we approach this problem. So our corridor is the one in purple there at the top. Obviously, you see the Dallas to Houston corridor, and then on the other side, the Fort Worth to Laredo corridor along the 35 alignment. Our piece is really the connecting piece at the top. So you have a connection between the Dallas to the Fort Worth side. It may seem like a short skip and a jump, but in rush hour, it's not short by any means. Even with our existing transit, intra-regional transit network, it still takes time and a lot of commuter stations in between. So what we're looking for is a connected, seamless system, a one-seat ride, Fort Worth to Houston, Dallas to Austin to San Antonio. It's all in the same system. It's all in the same set of tracks. You don't have to change trains. Again, from an MPO standpoint, we're used to dealing with system level thinking. We deal with it with our cities, connecting the cities and counties within the DFW region, so they don't stop at their borders or their planning. We connect regionally across those borders. We're thinking the same thing from a state level, from a national level. How do you create a system and not a bunch of disjointed high-speed rail projects that aren't connected? The purpose of our project, again, in purple, is to obtain environmental approval. So trying to clear that hurdle so that we can attract private investment for the corridor. The Regional Transportation Council that governs COG, their policy is for that one-seat ride, again, system level thinking throughout the region. And they've settled on a 3-station concept within our region. Again, because it is so large, one station really could not serve the entire region. So a 3-station concept, Fort Worth, Arlington, and Dallas. Real quick here, I want to touch on a parallel effort while we're leading this environmental clearance document between Fort Worth and Dallas. We submitted a Fort Worth to Houston for the Corridor ID program that FRA just released. We've been in conversations with FRA and FTA through our project. We heard that if we're going to submit and get registered on the national map for a high-speed rail project, it really needs to be a little bit longer than something within an MPO boundary. We submitted Fort Worth to Houston as a single corridor. For our segment, the Fort Worth to Dallas segment, we expect to achieve environmental clearance by the fall of 24. FTA has agreed to be our lead agency, and we can get into the discussion on why that is. I think it'll be FTA's first high-speed rail project, frankly. They believe it'll be an environmental assessment type approach, since we're mostly within the I-30 corridor for about 90% of the project length between Dallas and Fort Worth, which really helps the process, getting this cleared, getting this promoted for future public-private partnerships. On the Dallas to Houston segment side, we've heard news that there may be a future partnership brewing. So we're waiting to see what occurs there. As you can see from the screen, Amtrak, in coordination with Texas Central, did submit for the CRISI, Corridor ID, and FSB national grant programs for that particular corridor. And finally, if we are connecting Fort Worth to Dallas as a one-seat ride all the way to Houston, this gives us the opportunity to potentially rethink the statewide network, as opposed to the upside down U you saw in the previous slide. Perhaps this is a rendition back to the original Texas T-bone, or at least an alternative to the original Texas T-bone that was conceived decades ago, where maybe we don't need all segments of the triangle. We can save on some costs and potentially build in a connection to the Austin, San Antonio off the Dallas to Houston leg. So definitely a lot of discussions to continue to occur, but we're excited about the process of FRA reviewing these grant programs, getting all parties interested in these corridors together so that we can discuss next steps and see what's the future of high-speed rail in Texas.
Thank you, Brendan. And I have to say, I just love this idea of a bite-sized chunk of high-speed rail right between a couple major cities and a future statewide network. I think it's brilliant, and wish you guys the best moving forward. Arthur, go ahead.
Thanks, Ezra. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Arthur Sohikian. I'm the Executive Director of the High Desert Corridor Joint Powers Agency. As the slides come up, I'll just give you a quick background. The agency is made up of 6 members, Los Angeles County Metro, and then the cities in Palmdale, and Lancaster in LA County, and the cities of Victorville and Adelanto in San Bernardino. This project has been studied and studied and studied. So I'd like to suggest that we're the poster child of what could happen as a bottoms-up approach. This corridor had been a highway corridor. It had been looked at as a highway corridor for over a decade. Studies had begun as a highway corridor. It was in 2 measures of LA County voters. In 2008, it was in the Measure R that funded the EIR. That EIR was approved in 2016 with a highway and a rail line in the median. It was a 500-foot corridor, as you could imagine, for highway with rail. So in the infinite wisdom of where California is going and the climate change, right around 2019, 2020, we had a no build on the highway portion. So it was actually declared a no build portion, and we decided to keep moving forward on the alternative as a high-speed rail project and petition the FRA to now become the lead. So as you can imagine, we were in DOT under FHWA and Caltrans. Then we transitioned over to FRA and the high-speed rail. Completely, really bottoms up planning approach from all the communities involved. And as you can see on the map, I like to keep this map up. It generally helps define what's going on. And so to what everyone has heard today, just basically in the United States, take the 12 billion, give it to Southern Nevada and California, and we'll just connect all this right now. I mean, literally, we can have this all in construction. Brightline West, as you can see, is the partner that's coming in from Las Vegas on the one side. And on the other side, you have the California high-speed rail coming into Los Angeles County and Palmdale. The Bakersfield to Palmdale segment that you heard Mr. Kelly and others speak about is environmentally cleared. It started tomorrow. Our section is being reevaluated by the FRA, rightfully so. And that reevaluation is mainly caused because some of the station alignments were changed, but they're still within that same 500-foot right-of-way that was cleared, if you will. So I don't pretend to be the environmental person in the room by any means, but we kind of know where every critter is and where every turtle is and where every flower is. And I think we need to just keep going and work together. As we all know, California will go that extra mile to do environmental studies, and we're doing the same with the federal government. So, you know, it's a 54-mile segment, as you can see by some of the stats up there. It basically goes through entirely equity-focused communities. We hit all the 4 check marks that you heard Secretary Topes talk about earlier today. And we're proud to say that we did just receive an $8 million grant from the state of California. So with that, we have applied to the Corridor ID program. That is an evaluation. We hope to get good news on that. So there's no doubt that probably by sometime next year, middle of next year, we should be environmentally cleared with a record of decision to move forward and get into final design and construction. I applaud our partners at Brightline West. For many of you in the room here, you don't often see projects that can go to 30% PE design without having all their environmental clearance. I mean, that, as for many of us in project development world, you know, when's the last time you saw that happen in the government world? So kudos to Brightline West. I'll sing that to the, you know, anywhere you want me to go preach about what they're putting forward. It's an exciting project. We're looking forward to connect to that project. And we're very excited to connect to the California high-speed rail project. We just embarked on, we have a draft service development plan. For those of you in that project development world, you know, that's part of what's going on. We still have some refinements to do to submit it to the FRA. But in general, just what that tells you, 1 seat ride from Palmdale to Las Vegas, roughly $70 one way. Very competitive with any of the short haul trips that are going on. And for any of you that have ever driven that corridor or tried to drive that corridor, why don't y'all come out Memorial Day? We'll all get on in Palmdale. We'll take the roads and we'll be there in about, what, 12 hours, Ben? It takes about 14 hours. I've literally been on that road where I see people walking faster than my car is moving. I've literally let my kids out of the car to let them walk, to go pick them up in a quarter of a mile because they go crazy sitting in the car. When are we going to get there? So we have the alternatives. We look forward to working with our partners in labor. We've had that discussion. We look forward to having more. The other thing in the planning process that is new for us is this administration, rightfully so, has decided to treat some of the tribal nations as sovereign nations and have government to government consultation on these projects. I think that has been a tremendous move by the Biden administration. For many of you, you might know that what most of this territory is the San Manuel Nation. They are a federally recognized tribe, and we look forward to perhaps some economic development opportunities with the tribe and their membership. So just very excited. We look forward to it. I usually, like I said, I just kind of keep this up. There's other slides. I could do the really pretty ones, right? That give you all how it's going to look and all those good things. And I need to get to this. I want to put everyone to work. I want to get this project built. 54 miles in roughly 30 minutes. All the smarter folks in the room, the engineers basically said, not a whole lot of difference between 185 and 200 miles an hour. You basically get 2 or 3 minutes. So more for O&M and maintenance and all that kind of stuff, kind of makes a lot more sense to go with the 185. And like I said, roughly about a 25-minute ride, connect up to Brightline, get that 1-seat ride. Tremendous partnership with Brightline. They have really opened up their doors to the planning process. Same thing with California High-Speed Rail. I like to use the example of everyone will have 48-inch platforms, for example, so that we all can be uniform. We all could have that ability to connect to any of your trains or how you want to do that and bring that in. So really key safety aspect of this of interoperability. I think that's that word, right? It will be seamless to the passenger, similar to what you see Brightline do now. Tell us where you want to go. You'll be picked up and your bags will be there. So looking forward to this. It's something that it is intermodal. We have all the different services that could come into the area. And when you think of LA County, you think of the metropolis. You don't often think of the high desert. And the high desert is a stronger population area. It's one of the only areas in LA County that will continue to see growth and job growth. So with that, I'll pass it back to Ezra. I look forward to any questions you might have and look forward to talking to you guys afterwards as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Arthur. Yeah, thank you, Brandon. Come on. So, Arthur, let me start quickly with you. California High-Speed Rail, the priority #1 is Merced to Bakersfield. And my understanding of priority #2 is up to the Bay Area. So this path down to Palmdale seems a bit far off. So what's the case for High Desert Corridor given that? And what's the ridership case? Is it Vegas to Palmdale, or are you thinking Vegas down to Disney? What's your argument there?
Can I say all? But you're right. Right now, the business plan that the Secretary and Mr. Kelly have put forward to the California legislature has them going from Merced to San Jose as that next leg. And that makes sense right now, to be honest. There's billions of dollars that are being pledged by some of the private sector tech companies there. And frankly, in Los Angeles County, a lot of the funding is being spent on the subway and light rail system at the moment. Many of you have heard of that 28 by 28 initiative that LA County has. So we're in the measure. We have specific dollars. We have roughly, as you saw on that slide, about 160 million. So we have the ability to do this pre-development work. And to my opinion, if we can get to 30% and have environmental clearance, I think we become very attractive. I won't use the beer goggles analogy, but I think we can be very attractive to someone for public-private partnership. I think that the nation, we have a great connection here. You can really bring the ridership numbers. If you could connect LA County with Las Vegas are through the roof. We anticipate roughly 40,000 riders on the day we open. To give you an idea, the Metrolink system, which is the 6 county commuter rail system, carries about 18,000 people on a daily basis. So we feel we become very attractive if I could just get us through environmental and get to that 30% design.
So yesterday, I asked Congressman Moulton a question about the climate emergency. The IPCC has said the entire world needs to cut emissions in half in 7 years from now. And we know high-speed rail could be a big part of that solution. But right now, high-speed rail projects are taking forever. So can we get to that kind of an emergency build out of high-speed rail in the US? What would that look like, and how would that contrast with how it's working right now? Anybody want to take this one?
I think the thought was expressed earlier in terms of a multi-stakeholder approach. Approaching this as a multi-stakeholder approach, bringing together folks to the table, I think is worthwhile. From our perspective, from the planning part of it, where that would produce the outcomes that we're looking for. In terms of time, that is always the challenge that we face in terms of how quickly you can mobilize and get things done. But I think at the end of the day, if we have everyone at the seat, provide a seat at the table, your probability for success and the outcomes that you just referred to, Ezra, would be a good approach.
Yeah, I want to build on, I guess, a couple of things we've heard from Congressman Moulton, from others. where he's talking about maybe we need to take another look at our environmental process and how we're able to actually speed up projects that are actually supporting the environment like high-speed rail would compared to other transportation modes. As well as I think what Brian Kelly was saying for California high-speed rail of hey, the public sector needs to kind of own it and move it forward. So you put those together, and that's really, I feel like what our region has done is in I say the vacuum of a statewide led high-speed rail planning effort, or even a nationwide from a federal government planning effort, which is starting with this corridor ID program, but until this point it's kind of been a catch as catch can kind of approach for high-speed rail around the nation. Our region has taken, I guess, a leadership approach in we just want to environmentally clear the corridor. We want to get projects moving. And that's the approach we take to all the projects that we have of don't worry about the money to construct. Let's just get it clear. Let's get projects shovel ready. When the money's there, we can build it, as opposed to the money gets there and it takes us 10 years to actually build it. And by then it's 5 times more expensive. So that's our approach, is getting projects shovel ready and moving them forward through the environmental process, through the planning process as quickly as possible, getting the public involved and the stakeholders involved early. Getting all those decisions made so that when the funding arrives, you're ready to start building projects and segmenting whatever you can at the time based on funding available.
Yeah, I fully agree. Part of this, and you've heard a lot about it during this conference, as Savannah was just alluding to, and at times it seems like we're schizophrenic on the planning process as a nation. Yes, democracy is ugly at times. Democracy is difficult, but it's also difficult to plan when you're not sure where your partners are. And I think, the state of California, the taxpayers of LA County have raised their hand twice in measures, well over 60% of the voters, raising their hand saying, hey, we'll put our money where our mouth is. The state, again, you heard 85% of the funds is coming from the state. That's just, to me, the federal government really has to step up. We truly applaud what this administration has done, but we need to keep it consistent. We need another one of these. So what FRA is planning to do with this corridor ID program to show Congress and to show the world, frankly, what's possible is really going to be very important. The work you're doing, Ezra and Andy and your team, to spread the word, yeah, we're talking to the hymnal, to the choir today in this conference, but you going out, having that discussion and making those investments in your time is very important. You really have to keep talking about high-speed rail and how the nation needs to move this forward. We need our partners.
Thank you, guys. Let's open it up to a couple of quick questions. I want to make sure everyone has time for a robust break here. So Rich, can we get a mic to Rich? Okay, this could take a second. Go ahead, Rich. Go ahead. Sorry, Autumn. Go ahead, Rich.
Assuming these corridors are built, then Texas,
We definitely do think that. As a matter of fact, we met with the folks from Amtrak last week, and they will be part of this discussion as well. And we see this sort of working in that direction. How all this would fit, we don't know, but we will definitely consider existing infrastructure and the capabilities that are out there.
Yeah, and I would add that Amtrak is already taking a leadership role in that connection today. There currently isn't service between, say, Atlanta and DFW, but they're planning to, they've already submitted, I believe, to the FSP program for that connection to be reestablished between Meridian and East Texas. The other parts already have service available, so that you'd be able to have that traditional Amtrak service. So that's a step in the right direction. But as these high-speed rail networks get built out, I know at least on the Texas side, I'm sure on Georgia's side, the connections between the high-speed rail networks and other intercity modes would be as seamless as possible, as connected as possible. They're not going to be, on the other side of the city and you have to take a bus to get there, something like that.
Thanks, Rich. Any other questions? Go ahead, and then Jim.
we talk about high-speed rail, but other countries, they have not only rail, but magnetically levitating with maglev. Is any of that in any discussions as far as maglev, or is it all steel, rail, steel?
So our study between Dallas and Fort Worth included maglev. It also included Hyperloop for whoever thinks Hyperloop's going to work. We included that as well. It's a developing technology. We don't know where it's going to land. We recognize this is a 75, 150-year investment. So we want to make the right call now. If high-speed rail is a 50-year-old technology, we don't want to miss the next one. So that was part of our philosophy going forward. So we did look at maglev. We looked at others. We ended up with high-speed rail for this quarter, and I can say from the screening criteria in our project, at least for, like I said, for our project, maglev was orders of magnitude more expensive than high-speed rail. Not to say it can't work in other places, but that's just.
Arthur, steel wheel on steel rail?
Yes.
And then Clement, have you guys determined this yet?
No, we're still learning, but as I mentioned earlier, all options are on the table. What fits best will be what we'll take.
Jim Matthews, Rail Passengers Association?
This is just a quick one. Arthur, did I misread your slide? And I probably did. It looked
$1
like
billion?
construction begins in 40 years.
Well, there's money in the measure that, the way the measure worked is Los Angeles County is split up into subregions. So there's 9 subregions. So of course, we wound up our first project being a highway project that's currently under construction on the I-5 right now in northern Los Angeles County. So to kind of do the fantasy drafting, we have to wait in line every decade, another measure, a subregion got a major project. So for when it came back around to us, it's 2063 money. So we have about 170 million, 160 million currently for development activities and right away. And then in 2063, 2067, there's 1.8 billion. So you did see that correct. The smarter minds in the room tell me that if we move that money up to 2030, it's about $1 billion total right now. So
You're not planning a 30-year build out of it?
no, we want to leverage that money now. We feel the federal government has programs for things like that, the Jobs America program or something like that. I know I'm getting the title wrong. Loan programs, whatever we can do to bring that money forward. We feel we can be in final design in basically 3 years, 2 years, and can be in construction and match what's happening with Brightline West, and have a meaningful connection. And it's roughly about a $5.5 billion project. So in my world, bringing 20-25% of that local money to this type of mega project. Come on, federal government, let's go. Let's go. Come on, let's go. Let's do it.
I think there was a question. Yeah, go ahead, Serge from HNTV. You want to take a mic, Serge? Sorry.
So I was the one that helped clear the Bakersfield Palmdale section. I just want to add a little bit of context. For me, it's a bit of a pet section because it is the only section along our corridor, or the high-speed rail corridor, that actually doesn't currently have a rail. So it's an important gap that if you're traveling from the Central Valley or the Bay Area to Los Angeles, you can take a train all the way to Bakersfield, then you got to get on a bus to connect down to Palmdale. So connecting that Bakersfield to Palmdale section is critical gap that once we put rail, we connect Northern California, Southern California, and to Vegas. And I should also add that it's also part of the grant application. So it's seeking additional funds to get from the 15% to 30%.
Yeah, the Bakersfield to Palmdale section, as I mentioned, is environmentally clear. I mean, it's just money right now. I mean, just money, right? I'll just head over to the Treasury and see if we can't print some. But it really, I hate to make it that simple. It really is that simple. We're ready to go. And again, we really appreciate the partnership with the federal government, but the politics, the Bakersfield station is in maybe the speaker's district. And, right now, frankly, the California Republicans have not embraced the high-speed rail fully on the public sector side, right? They've embraced the Brightline concept with the private funding and public funding, and it's a great concept, but we can't all do that. So we've got to get out of this partisan mode, to be honest, on this stuff. You've all been hearing about that.
Okay, we have one more question and then we can wrap it up. Mike is coming over to you, sir.
Hi, my name is Joaquin. I'm a prime consultant working currently on California high-speed rail. And one of the challenges I've seen in my line of work is a lack of collaboration with public and private agencies that may have been impacted by this project. And I'm wondering if you are all considering any strategies or legislation paired with these projects to help incentivize the.
And I can speak for our project at this point. It has been a bottoms-up collaboration. The communities want this. You can see that there's been advanced design planning of how the stations will be intermodal. They will connect to the Metrolink station. They will connect to first and last mile, which is an important part of this. So right now, to be honest, I don't want to see any other legislation that's not going to fund us. Because we have more legislation comes or more top-down type of planning, I'll call it. it just slows you down. It really does right now. We really have studied this corridor for 20 years. Again, I say it, we should be a poster child out there, going from a local planning of a highway to abandoning that highway to going to a high-speed rail. How is that not a poster child? And to be honest, most of you probably didn't even know anything about it until you got here. So I need to do a better job probably of getting that out and having these kinds of things. So I really appreciate you having us here to preach. and if you want me to preach anywhere, I'll go. So just tell me where you
Richard Sohickian.
yes, tell me where you need.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming today and for your vision and determination to make this happen. From all I've heard from you guys, it's a Kafka-esque process trying to get these things going. I kind of wonder if you have to be a masochist to take one of these things on. But thank you guys. We need more people like you building high-speed rail around America.
Thanks for your time, Ed. Thank you.